within the larger music culture, people still openly questioned whether hip-hop was even a genre of music. So Rick Rubin, a lover of hip-hop, dying for people to see its potential, looked for a way not only to introduce it to people who would get it right away if they heard it, but he also sought to prove to those who were the least bit interested that it was a viable genre of music and deserved to be taken seriously. The now famous hip-hop group Run-DMC had been managed by Russell Simmons for years before Def Jam. In fact, Run of Run-DMC is actually Russell Simmons' younger brother, his first full name being Joseph Run Simmons. But once they met Rick Rubin, it was like they gained another brother. After all, even in the book, Rubin notes that his music process first starts in building a friendship. Quote, "I have to really like them as people first and foremost. Then I talk to them and hear their vision for the project, see what's going on in their life, and see if it feels like there's potential for great work to come." And this friendship between the members of Run-DMC and Rubin was quickly established as soon as they met. I'll quote from the book again, where Rubin says, "We just became friends, and when it was time to make their next album, they really loved what I was doing with LL, so they asked me to help." Rick Rubin had a vision for Run-DMC's next album. He wanted something raw, musical, and ferocious. But of course, it would also have Rubin's signature stripped-back style. But to quote Rubin again, "There's more music going on than anyone else's record at the time. It's less is more, but it's the right less." Rubin notes that there was a concerted effort for each track to stand on its own, wanting to move away from the samey nature of some hip-hop records. What helped Rubin do this was to draw from all different styles of music, much like he did with LL Cool J and the Beatles' influence on their song structure. This time it was James Brown's funky drumming, but paired with the crummy studio sound Rubin was keen to get across. He felt like the soul of the music would come across in a way that was really personal. To quote Rubin himself, "It's still a natural part of me not to have a lot of extra stuff involved that doesn't add to the production, and to get to the essence of what music is. You want to feel like you have a relationship with the artist when you're done listening to their record." But another way Rubin would look to make sure that the album didn't feel samey would be to take an idea that Run-DMC had and to take it somewhere completely new. Again, if you recall, the general music culture had a hard time even calling hip-hop and rap music music. So with this in mind, when Run-DMC mentioned to Rubin that they wanted to sample the first 7 seconds of Aerosmith's 1975 song Walk This Way, Rubin suggested something more radical. Let's call Aerosmith. Simmons recalls Rubin's idea in the book, quote, "Run and DMC were not for the idea. I was a little more in the middle about it, but we had a lot of fun making it." But Rubin eventually turned Run-DMC and sold both groups on the idea not just of sampling Aerosmith's song, but to making a whole new song based on the original together. One that would have Run-DMC rap and Aerosmith sing and have guitar solos over effectively the same song. As the book notes, Rubin saw a natural musical compatibility between the two genres of rock and rap, and his production of Walk This Way helped the general public open their eyes to hip-hop. What Rubin did here was genius. It would have generally been great PR, getting a lot of eyes and ears on Run-DMC's work, but it would also have introduced rock fans to hip-hop. And that love would go both ways, I'm sure, as it introduced hip-hop fans to rock too. But most importantly, the end result was a statement, one that Rubin made to tell critics that claimed rap music wasn't music, that if a rock group and a rap group could coexist on the same song, then rap is as much music as rock is. To quote Rubin himself, the idea was to give hip-hop a context. It would show people outside of the really small hip-hop community that if you saw it in a different light, maybe you could discover the music's secret. It was a shortcut to get people to see it. In a kind of full circle reference to my first episode of Icons, where I covered 50 Cent, I mentioned that I first discovered 50 Cent as a young teenager who had just gotten their first iPod, but because I didn't have my own iTunes yet, I was initially syncing my iPod to a family friend's laptop and just listening to what music he liked, which of course included a lot of 50 Cent, but it also included the music video to the song Walk This Way. And so in rewatching the video, I had a lot of nostalgia, and it was exciting to learn that I had encountered Rick Rubin's influence so early on in my music journey. But it also gave me a huge appreciation for how good that video actually is. since it features Run-DMC and Aerosmith playing in two rooms that are presented side by side with a wall between them, only for that wall to eventually be torn down, which is just a beautiful visual metaphor. And whilst it doesn't mention it in the book, I'm sure Rick Rubin had a big influence in the direction of that piece of work. So the lesson here, to me, what I love about Rick Rubin is that he's never just making a track. He thought about context. By putting Run-DMC and Aerosmith on the same record, Rubin wasn't just trying to make a hit song. He was trying to reframe how people saw hip-hop. He gave it a new context that made it impossible to ignore, even for those who swore rap wasn't music. And so for any maker, I'd advise that perhaps your biggest breakthrough wouldn't come necessarily of doing more of what you know. It will come from tearing down a wall, building a bridge, and letting two worlds collide in a way that changes how people see your craft altogether. And if the thing you're working on hasn't yet found its true fans, find ways to associate your work with something people already know, love, and understand. That way, you're not only reaching the audience that surrounds that, you're also signaling that your work belongs in the same conversation.